Okay, Maurice Kirk, famous protester. This is Voice for Protest. You were telling us about your history in the Channel Islands and various places.
Yes.
Your dispute in Guernsey was basically a fairly simple dispute, but like all these Channel Island disputes, it became more complicated because of the authorities.
Yeah.
Guernsey disputes were basically fairly mundane, small things.
Well, they weren't
and
for
they
me,
were made
because I'd sold up and I'd settled for life. I was going to live in Guernsey.
That's right, but they, by relatively small decisions which could have been made, but they made difficult by making wrong decisions. So the thing became more and more complicated.
It became complicated because I kept uncovering deceit and dishonesty, which is part of their life, and they've lived on it. I mean, that's how they pirated Queen Anne's, First Elizabeth's ships, and everything else was all based on thorough dishonesty.
Because I can remember coming to see you when you were, I think you were in hospital, you were on hunger strike. You were on hunger strike for about 30 days.
Yes,
quite a severe hunger strike.
A bit more than that, but it was. That hunger strike was because I arrested the magistrate for breaking the law, and they fiddled the charge from disorderly conduct to one of contempt of court, which was outrageously done. But
and I remember subsequently going to the Privy Council, whether, I don't know if it was that contempt of court, but you challenged that contempt of court at the Privy Council, and I remember attending at the Privy Council, and you were up against the law lords, whatever they were, these highfalutin judges.
Well, there was Lord Bridge, there was the Scottish Chancellor, Lord Chancellor at the time, who complimented me for my history of the Clamor de Harrow and how much knowledge I appeared to have of the history of Jersey and Guernsey prohibited
And I
injunction.
remember witnessing your Clamor de Harrow in Jersey. You did a Clamor de Harrow.
On the quay over there.
Indeed you did.
That's right.
But there were serious issues that had to be resolved, weren't there? It wasn't just trivial things, they were important issues.
It was a personal matter of money and my business being stolen, but it was criminal conduct. But because it involved lawyers in on the fraud, I had to be disposed of something, because they'd got the reputation. I had a reputation by then of if I said something in court.
I remember all sorts of things you did. You came into court dressed as a Nazi.
Oh yes, a Nazi uniform. I mean, there was another case, just to say the stop letters were serious, because they were letters to members of Parliament, George Fawkes and Alf Dubs, and they stood up in the House of Commons and asked questions about this man on a British prison on hunger strike, because his letters to his lawyers in England and to a chap called my Jersey mentor was one of them. His name was
yes, well, we forget him.
Or forget him. He worked for architects in Hill Street.
They brought in the offence of vexatious litigant, especially for you in Guernsey, if I remember rightly.
Yes, they brought in this expression, vexatious litigant, which is where I am now in the Privy Council again, against the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons and against the South Wales Police.
Right.
But that hunger strike followed the publicity it gave, which is what it was done for. But they were breaking their own laws. It was outrageous what they were prepared to do. Then I left. I was on surveillance day and night. My phone was tapped in St Peter Port police station for 2 years with a big loudspeaker, and I got all the witnesses. People saw it and heard it. I was smuggled out, and I came down to Jersey, and I've not been back to Guernsey since. And of course,
in what year was that? That was about
1992.
1992.
And I set up a veterinary hospital. I built a hospital in Barry, near Barry Island in South Wales, and I soon realised I was being under surveillance again. But of course, I was trying to run a business. All my kids were at private schools, public schools, and boarding schools, and the money had to come in. So I built a hospital, a veterinary hospital, and they had police surveillance. They were photographing my Guernsey registered vehicles, my motorbikes, my vans, my cars, trying to find a loophole in the law. And I kept being taken. 121 charges I won, brought by the police, mainly motoring. And just recently, which is what I'm going to finish on, I've made the Chief of Police, Barbara Wilding of the South Wales Police, swear an affidavit before court. And she has said some of these court cases never happened. Never even happened. And the ones they are denying never happened all deal with Guernsey registered cars that were under surveillance. And they didn't want anybody to know that I was under that expensive surveillance for a vendetta that started in Somerset from the theft of a chief superintendent's notebook, third drawer down on the right in his office in the middle of Taunton police station. in 1972 or 3, where I was taken to court for theft and found not guilty. I called no witnesses. I put a pleading, no case to answer. And the judge said, of course I will, of course I will. And in came the jury. And it's a very long and very funny story. But that has hounded me all my life. And I'm not leaving again. I'm not moving on from South Wales until I have exposed them, which is why I have my website, kirkflyingvet.com. I have it written all over my aeroplanes. And I'm taking the word about British justice to the countries around the world. Don't believe a word of it. It's a complete myth. And it's all tied up with HM Partnership, Her Majesty's Partnership. Any lawyer has to swear an oath of allegiance to the Queen. And every judge has to. The prosecution service has to. So when you try and get justice in a British court, if it touches on the toenails of any of those departments, you are doomed. And I'm 64. It's taken me 64 years to come round to realising it.
You stood for the states in Guernsey and just narrowly got defeated.
I missed by 33 votes, thank God. I pray to my God quite often now for other matters. But I had a lot of friends in Guernsey who didn't have the education I had. And they didn't have the money coming in. And I set up the Guernsey Legal Aid Association because there is no legal aid in Guernsey. And I set it up. And I've got a lot of friends in Guernsey. I feel very sorry for them because once they were tarnished as troublemakers, they were doomed. And I left the island and set up again. And now I fly my aeroplane around the world.
That's right. Worldwide, you're more famous as an aviator or aviator.
And when the US Coast Guard saved my life in the Caribbean, while the sharks were about to circle and have my fingers, I went and thanked Mr. Bush personally, except it went a bit pear-shaped. I landed my old vintage Piper Cub in a field near the ranch. I was surrounded by guns, SAM missiles. They had an F-16 ready to roll up at the next fighter base.